Orphanage Girl by Karen K. Spirit. Room 4! Zora's eyes flew open frantically when her ears picked up the screech. She looked at the rusty old clock on a cardboard box next to her rickety old bed. 5:30 in the morning. She heard footsteps coming towards her bedroom she shared with 3 other girls who were only years younger than her. Zora jumped out of bed and shook the younger girls awake. "Maddie, Allie, Rosie, wake up! Sister Sourbeck is coming!" The girls' eyes fluttered open in fright. They too jumped out of bed and hurried to put on their ragged old clothes that were far too big for an 11, 9, 8 and 6-year-old. A large stout nun barged in just as they finished getting dressed. "Zora, Alice, Rosalind and Madison, why didn't you come when I called for you?" The young girls looked up at Zora. We couldn't come right away because we had trouble looking for our clothes in the dark." The nun scowled. "Lies," she spat. "Absolute lies. You 4'll get cold gruel this morning." With that, she stomped out. Zora sighed. Just like yesterday. Maddie, Allie and Rosie clung to her as she hugged them back. "Come on, it's better than starving until 1 o'clock. They all followed her out the door downstairs to the kitchen. The place the girls lived in was an orphanage. Zora was the oldest there, yet she lived there all her life. She was abandoned on the doorstep with a pair of earrings wrapped in a box that said, "Please look after Zora. Her mother died when in labour, and her request was Zora to have these earrings. I cannot take care of her, as I am preoccupied. Please, take care of her. Lancaster." Zora wasn't sure whether Lancaster was her last name, or her unknown living relative's first name. Either way, it was put as her last name. As she and her friends entered the kitchen, she saw the 7-year-old triplets, Annie, Bethany and Clara, sitting together, giggling with excitement. Zora knew why. They were getting adopted, and today they were going home with their new parents. As she went past the dusty chalkboard, she saw in thick white writing a notice saying, "Mr. Pike, visiting, 10:30. She paid no attention to it, thinking it was just another interview for adoption. For the past 11 years, Zora had no luck with adoption. She was polite with the wannabe parents, but she was always rejected. For a few years, she thought Sister Sourbeck was telling lies about her, trying to poison their minds that she was a bad little orphan nobody would want, but then considered Sister Sourbeck would want rid of her since the day she arrived at the orphanage. As the girls got their Arctic-like breakfast, they sat down and ate it without complaint. "Zora?" Zora looked up from her small bowl to Bethany, who gave her puppy dog eyes. "What is it, Bethany? When we leave today, will you forget us?" Zora laughed. "Don't be stupid, Bethany. I won't forget you in 3 million years. The triplets smiled. "Hey, after breakfast, I'll make sure we'll never forget you." The smiles turned into grins. The time was 9 o'clock. After 3.5 hours of housework, the 7 girls hurried to room 4. Zora pushed her bed to one side and opened a loose floorboard and took out a wooden box. "I got this when I snuck out last month." She opened the box that had gold thread, a penknife, and a large amount of beads inside. "We'll make friendship bracelets, and that way we'll be friends forever. Annie, Bethany, and Clara, you have 7 beads. Maddie, you have 9. Allie, you have 8. Rosie, you have 6, and I'll have 11. For the rest of the hour, the 7 girls made their bracelets and sat clinging on to each other. "Annie, Bethany, Clara, it's time to go. Your new parents are here." The triplets looked sadly towards their friends. "We will be friends, won't we? Forever and ever?" said Clara. "Yes, we will, forever and ever. We might meet again, and we might all be famous," Zora whispered. All 7 of them hugged all at once, and the triplets left the room for the last time. It was 10:25 when the doorbell rang. The remaining 4 girls of the orphanage peered over the banister as Sister Sourbeck opened the door. A middle-aged, balding, stout-looking man wearing a brown suit and red tie stood outside. Sister Sourbeck, I presume? Yes, you're Marshall Pike from Condor Studios. Yes, that would be me. The nun let him in and into the private lounge the orphans were forbidden to go into. The girl slid down the banister silently and snuck up to the door and listened hard. So, you'd like one of the orphans to be on your TV shows? Yes, Mr. Condor would like an orphan to be on So Random. He does have a tender spot for orphan children. What kind of child does he want? Either a boy or a girl, aged 5 to 13. There was a long pause. Well, we do have a 6, 8 and 9-year-old. They're all the 3 children we have left. The 3 young girls gasped silently as Zora's mouth fell open. Without thinking, she yanked the door open and burst in. You lying hypocrite! You always told us lying was a sin! Mr. Pike had a startled look on his face, while Sister Sourbeck had complete shock. You have been listening, you sinful sprite! The nun charged at Zora and yanked her by her hair, out the door, into the kitchen. You, get into the pit! The malicious woman shoved the poor girl into a narrow hole with an iron grid. Miss Sister Sourbeck, what are you doing? Mr. Pike yelled. She's a demon child, Mr. Pike. Mr. Condor wouldn't want her. She's loud, spontaneous, and ill-mannered. She sounds just right for the show. Now get her out of that hole before I call the police. The nun scowled at him, but opened the grid and yanked Zora out. Zora mouthed, "Thank you," to Mr. Pike and ran out the kitchen. Maddie, Allie, and Rosie hung on to her after they saw what happened. The 4 of them ran back to their room as tears spilled down their faces. 10 minutes later, Mr. Pike came into their room with a look of sympathy on his face. Zora, I was wondering if you would like to come to Condor Studios with me. Would you like to get away from this place? Zora nodded slowly. I would, but I can't leave Maddie, Allie, and Rosie. They're lost without me. The girls clung on to her again. Mr. Pike looked thoughtful for a few moments. Give me 5 minutes, he finally said, and walked out the door. Rosie looked up at Zora with tear-filled orbs. You wanted to be famous, Zora. I know, Rosie, but I can't just leave you 3 here on your own with Sister Sourbeck. We would be like, okay, Zora, we'd be like you, Maddie said. Zora smiled. I wouldn't risk that, Maddie. Mr. Pike came back in with a huge grin spread across his face. Guess what, girls? You're all going to be on TV. All the girls gasped with happiness. Rosie and Allie, you 2 will be on the Goody Gang. Maddie, you'll be on Flower Power. And Zora, you'll be on So Random. All the girls squealed with joy. The end. Orphanage Girl is a Sonny with a Chance fanfiction written by Kanaran K. Spirit, made for YouTube. The characters Marshall Pike and Zora Lancaster are characters in Sonny with a Chance, owned by Disney.